Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Today, we're going to tackle something huge.
But so important to how we all, live together.
Social justice.
We're diving into Chapter 4 of 4socialjustice.pdf.
And it gets right into it.
What makes a society fair?
The different ways people see justice.
And how governments try to make it all, I don't know.
Make it all work.
So get ready to explore those core principles of social justice.
How some of history's,
Biggest thinkers have thought about these ideas.
And hopefully we'll leave you with...
Some thought-provoking questions to ponder on your own.
This chapter starts by comparing justice to love.
What do you make of that?
That's interesting, right?
Because they're both these things.
We all kind of get instinctively...
But try to define them.
And it gets complicated fast.
Yeah, we all crave justice.
Just like we crave,
Love.
It feels fundamental to a good society, don't you think?
Totally.
The chapter even says that justice isn't just about...
Right and wrong.
It's about how we structure our lives together.
Oh, wow.
How we share resources, the guiding principles,
Really big picture stuff.
Huge, yeah.
And because it's so central to how we live together.
It's also at the heart of politics.
That makes sense.
So where do we even begin to unpack this whole...
Social justice thing.
The chapter takes us on this historical tour.
Of how, different cultures have viewed justice.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see how much these ideas...
Resonate across different times and cultures.
For example, in ancient India, there was this really important concept.
How about it?
This idea of a divinely ordained social order.
Okay.
It's about fulfilling your duties, but also acting in a way.
That maintains harmony in the universe.
Interesting.
And in China, Confucius, the philosopher, he believed justice was all about,
Rewarding virtue and punishing wrongdoing.
It's about...
Setting a moral compass for society.
But, when we talk about influential voices on justice...
We have to go to ancient Greece.
Okay.
That's where we meet Plato.
In his work, The Republic, where he explores justice.
The Republic.
Yeah, I feel like...
I should have read that.
It's a classic.
But what does some ancient Greek philosopher have to say?
About justice today.
You might be surprised.
So Plato, through his character Socrates, makes this argument.
That while being unjust might seem like it works out for individuals sometimes.
Okay.
If everyone lived that way, society would self-destruct.
It'd be chaos.
Exactly.
No one would feel safe. No one would trust each other.
Your operation would be impossible.
Right.
He's basically saying that it's in our own best interest.
To strive for justice, even when it's hard.
Because the alternative is so much worse.
Way worse. So deep down.
We all know a just society.
Is better for everyone in the long run.
In the long run, absolutely.
But then that leads us to the next big question.
What does a just society actually look like?
And that's where things get really tricky.
Because what we deserve is probably different for everyone.
You hit the nail on the head. That's what we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll be exploring the different principles of justice.
Each with its own pros and cons.
And why finding that balance is so crucial.
This is already making my brain work.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back.
And ready to dig into some of those
Juicy principles of justice.
that you teased.
Where do we even start with this?
Well, the chapter goes into a few different principles.
And it's really interesting to see how they,
Play off each other.
one of the big ones is this idea of...
Treating equals equally.
Okay, on the surface,
Yeah.
that seems...
Pretty straightforward.
Everyone gets the same rights, same opportunities.
No matter,
Where they come from, right?
Right. It's about recognizing.
Inherent dignity and worth of every single person.
And it means things like,
Race, gender, religion.
those shouldn't be barriers to success.
Right.
Like if two people are doing the same job,
They should be paid the same.
regardless of their background.
It's about leveling the playing field.
That makes sense.
Then the chapter says,
Sometimes equal treatment.
isn't enough for real justice.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of a mind bender.
Because what about...
Situations where people put in different levels of effort.
Or have different skills.
Yeah.
Shouldn't those be factored in somehow?
So we want fairness.
But we also value things like...
Hard work, talent.
Exactly.
We should all get that fair shot, but...
If someone's, going above and beyond...
Or taking on more responsibility.
Shouldn't that be, I don't know.
Reflected somehow.
And that's where this idea of proportionality comes in.
Okay.
This idea that it's fair to,
Reward people differently.
based on things like
The quality and quantity of their work.
your skills,
The risks they take.
things like that.
Okay, so...
Not just treating everyone the same.
But recognizing and rewarding.
And contributions fairly.
Exactly.
Obvious.
But are you ready for another layer to this?
Hit me.
I feel like we're going.
Deeper down the rabbit hole here.
Okay.
What about individuals with special needs?
Or those who face major disadvantages.
Right from the start,
Should they be held to the same standard as everyone else?
even if they haven't had access to.
The same resources or opportunities?
That's a tough one.
Because, yeah, you don't want to just...
Create a system of handouts.
But also, if someone's been dealt, like...
A really bad hand in life.
How do you expect them to...
Compete.
Without some kind of, I don't know.
Support.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act, and...
There's no easy answers.
The chapter stresses how important it is to...
Acknowledge those different starting points.
And that promoting social justice might mean...
Providing extra support or resources.
To those who need it most.
So sometimes true equality means,
Recognizing that not everyone starts at the same place.
And adjusting accordingly.
Right.
And this actually ties into something else the chapter talks about.
Philosopher John Rawls.
Okay.
And his famous thought experiment.
The veil of ignorance.
Veil of ignorance, okay?
That rings a bell.
But refresh my memory.
All right, so Rawls asks us to imagine.
Designing a society from scratch.
Okay.
But here's the catch.
We wouldn't know our place in it.
We wouldn't know our wealth, our status, or talent.
You wouldn't even know our health.
Whoa. Okay, that's...
A clean slate.
Right.
But how does that help us create...
A fairer system.
Wouldn't we all just design a society that,
benefits our...
Rawls argued that that's actually less likely.
Than you might think.
Because he believed that under this veil of ignorance...
Rational people
would naturally gravitate towards a system that
protects the most vulnerable.
Okay.
Why?
Because they wouldn't want to risk
ending up in a disadvantaged position themselves.
That's a really
interesting way to look at it.
Like by taking ourselves out of the equation,
we're more likely to design a system that's
fair for everyone.
Just in case we're the ones who need that fairness.
Exactly.
It kind of flips the script on how we
usually think about fairness.
Yeah.
Instead of designing a system that
benefits the people at the top.
We create a safety net for those at the bottom.
Because, hey, that could be us.
Yeah, that veil of ignorance thing
is a very powerful thought experiment.
But how do we take these big,
philosophical ideas
and actually put them into practice?
How do we bridge the gap from these,
lofty ideas
to the messy reality of,
creating a more just society?
Now you're asking the million-dollar question.
It's the heart of the debate.
That's been going on for centuries.
Role of free markets.
Versus government intervention.
Ooh, free markets versus government intervention.
That's a juicy one.
And that is exactly where we'll pick up.
In the final part of our deep dive.
All right, so we're back, ready to tackle this whole free market versus government thing.
Yeah, it's a classic debate.
Where do we even start?
Well, you've got these two camps, right?
Okay.
With very different ideas about how to create a just society.
On one side, you've got the free market enthusiasts.
Right.
They believe in the invisible hand of the market. Everyone pursuing their own economic interests.
And that this ultimately leads to the best outcomes for everyone.
So it's like competition leads to innovation and wealth.
Exactly.
And if we just let the market do its thing, everyone benefits.
Precisely.
Okay.
The most talented, the hardest workers rise to the top.
And their success trickles down, benefiting everyone.
Right, but the chapter brings up some problems with that.
Of course, it's not that simple.
What about the people who don't even get a chance to compete?
Exactly, and that's the argument for government intervention.
Okay.
Proponents of this view would say the government has a moral obligation.
To provide a safety net for the most vulnerable.
I see.
They'd argue that everyone deserves access to the basics.
Things like food, shelter, health care, education.
Regardless of their background
Regardless of their circumstances, exactly.
Because if someone is born into poverty,
right,
limited access to education, healthcare.
How can they compete?
Exactly. It's like they're set up to fail from the start. Right.
That's where government programs come in.
Okay.
Investing in human capital, leveling the playing field.
It's not just about fairness. It's also about a more productive society.
Absolutely. When everyone has a fair shot, everyone benefits in the long run.
Right. It makes sense.
Now, even within this pro-government intervention group,
there's debate about the best way to achieve this.
Oh, I bet.
Should it be direct aid, like welfare?
Or focus on empowering individuals.
Right, like job training or...
Exactly.
Affordable housing, accessible health care.
It's a complex issue, no easy answers.
It's like finding the right balance in a recipe.
Exactly.
Each ingredient matters, but the proportions have to be right.
And the chapter acknowledges this.
Different societies will find their own paths to social justice.
Right. Makes sense.
And the chapter wraps up with India as a case study,
Fascinating example, isn't it?
balancing individual merit with these deeply rooted inequalities. They're grappling with this tension, how to reward hard work and talent while acknowledging the uneven playing field.
Yeah, how do they even start to address that?
They've tried things like affirmative action policies,
Mhm.
reserving government jobs and education quotas for disadvantaged communities.
Trying to level the playing field a bit.
Exactly. Give those groups a leg up.
It makes you think, is that fair?
Right. And that's the debate.
People question the effectiveness, the fairness, if they truly achieve their goals.
It highlights that there are so many approaches to social justice.
Absolutely. And this chapter really shows there's no one right answer.
No magic formula.
It's an ongoing conversation, an evolving process.
Definitely a lot to think about. What really stuck with you from all of this? What are your takeaways?
Well, for me, it's that tension between individual responsibility and social support. It's a balancing act. We need to create a society where everyone has a chance to succeed, but also recognizes that not everyone starts from the same place.
It's about finding that balance, right? Individual opportunity, but also that safety net for those who need it.
Exactly. And that requires us to think critically about the systems we have in place. Are they truly just? And how can we make them better?
It's a conversation that we all need to be a part of, right? Thinking about these issues, talking about them, and working towards a more just world.
Absolutely. And this deep dive has given us a great foundation for doing just that.
It has. So listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a lot to think about. Keep those conversations going, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.